Welcome to CityLit Project's Baltimore API Spotlight for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Each week throughout the month of May, this series of readings and interview videos will showcase some of the great Asian American writers, poets, playwrights, and graphic artists that are brewing up goodness in Charm City. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at CityLit Project, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you know when these new videos go up. My name is Aditya Desai. I am a writer and editor in Baltimore and have been working with CityLit Project since 2016 as a volunteer, board member, and board secretary. And today I'm pleased to introduce Win. Win is a multidisciplinary artist and educator. He's an author of the multimedia comic The Gulf. He is a vocalist, pianist, composer, and band leader of the jazz trio Superior Cling. Win is currently a digital media lecturer at the Loyola University of Maryland. He lives in Baltimore with his wife and terrier. Hello, Win. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hi. Yeah, no, of course. Happy to have you. Yeah, would you mind maybe starting us off with a short reading from one of your works?
Yes, let me do that. Okay, so this is from my graphic novel, Bittersweet, a Pandemic Sketchbook. So much is happening, and it's all strange and new. I don't want to forget this time, so I'm keeping a sketchbook. Maryland to Florida. We're all packed and ready to go. Tal's mom and Deethra see us off. It's quite the distance, but we're optimistic we can get to my mom's in just one day. I take the first shift through Maryland and Virginia. It's a drizzly morning, 8:52 a.m. North Carolina. Tal's got the wheel for this shift. She pushes all the buttons and figures out cruise control. I snack. Majestic pines, deconstructed micro banh mi. Driving isn't so bad when you can take nap breaks and your husband feeds you oranges. South Carolina, 11:15 a.m. At a rest stop, I was reminded of a guy from work years ago. He would take a paper towel and use it to open the door when he left. I remember thinking it was a bit much. Now, I am that guy. Wherever he is, I hope he's okay. While I'm driving, Tal responds to text for me. It's been really easy so far because Tal's an amazing driver. I miss our dog though. We don't hit any traffic until Florida. Florida, 3:23 p.m. Where are you coming from? Maryland. Go ahead. Florida, 7:49 p.m. The sun sets to the soundtracks of a podcast and Sunday Mass. Florida, 8:53 p.m. We finally get off the highway and things start to look familiar. Two, quarantine. So on the left is, I made a little schematic of how we were going to divide my mom's house so we could be in quarantine for 2 weeks. If you guys can remember back in time in the summer of 2020. Day one, May 18th. Last night we sat and talked about our trip with mom before unpacking and going to bed. The trip was already worth it, just to be with her across the table. We slept like logs, and in the morning I get up to find mom washing the bugs off our car. Good morning, hon. At a bakery, I'm relieved to see a customer with a mask, but the employee isn't wearing one. All of Dad's mango trees are ripe with fruit, so on our first morning, we get right to work. Mom assigns us the low-hanging fruit, while she handles the harder-to-reach ones. This is the most exercise I've gotten in 2 months. Mom, I don't know how you did all this on your own. Your dad used to take a bucket and steadily pick mangoes each day through the entire season. He loved his trees. It's been a little over a year since Dad passed. I doubt he ever thought about his legacy, but I'm so glad every summer we have Dad's mangoes to harvest. What's so special about Dad's mangoes? At last count, we've got almost 40 mango trees. All of them originated from a single seed Banoi brought with her when she came to America in 1991. Banoi means grandmother. The golden fruit is fragrant, tender, and exceptionally sweet. Cut into nugget shapes, the seed piece. But you don't have to take our word for it. Here's what our friends say. Like a slice of heaven. I could eat 1 million of these. so different from the ones in the store. The taste, literally the best mangoes in the world. Mom has always been a workaholic. That's why they called me Yo-Yo at the shop. She kept this up when Dad passed, and during the pandemic, she has remained in constant motion. But everyone has a limit, and after 2 months of sheltering in place, Mom started to crack. My knee is aching, I didn't sleep at all, and my vertigo is back, but I'm fine, honey. Mom, we're going to drive to Florida and bring you back up north with us. No, honey, it's too far. We're not asking, Mom. We're going, so get the house ready for quarantine.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Um, it was wonderful to hear and kind of watch on the screen. The question that I wanted to ask was what inspired you to write this? I think maybe that's a little bit obvious. So maybe I'll rephrase that question. I guess what, as you were kind of going through this experience, were you thinking as you were kind of transcribing it into these images and writings?
Well, so it started off because early on in the pandemic, I teach at Loyola, and the students all of a sudden had to go completely virtual, and a lot of the assignments I had to tweak, and it ended up being the students were making a lot of digital media about their pandemic experience, and that was really inspiring for me. I would have to do demo examples for them, and I would make videos even just to like kind of cheer them up, because that first couple months was rough for the students and for the teachers. So I would make little videos of what was happening in my life to cheer them up, and they would respond and make work, and that kind of got the ball rolling in terms of keeping for me to keep a sketchbook and to keep account of all of the really all of these new novel experiences that we've all had during the pandemic. And then when summer hit and school was finished for the semester, and I had this a chance to be creative for the summer and do anything I wanted to do. We already had a plan to go down and do this road trip to pick up my mom, who was isolated for 2 months. And I just had a feeling that it would be a really eventful trip. It was our annual mango harvest, but during a pandemic, what is that like, and how's Mom doing, not seeing her for 2 months? And so I decided to just devote a couple of hours every single day of that 2-week trip, and what resulted was what I just read from the pandemic
Definitely.
sketchbook.
Yeah, it's it's not very long, but there was so much packed in there. Like the mango thing was just like such a lovely unexpected turn, and especially the idea that the seeds had come over with your grandmother and had been planted, and this is kind of the bounty that comes out every year. That, and then I was also kind of thinking of in a couple of the earlier pages, the trip to get down there, and the idea of like passing through these checkpoints and like making it from Maryland to Florida. And so there is like this almost mini migration story kind of happening in the background of this whole thing. And I think that's something that a lot of people have been thinking about how we're kind of renegotiating our spaces, and how a lot of times being from a diaspora or from like an immigrant background, you almost handle it in kind of a different way, maybe, that people have never kind of had to go anywhere. So I guess kind of with that in mind, where did you kind of start writing and drawing and sketching, and kind of what put you on the path to making kind of your vocation in life?
Oh, okay. Well, I always drew, and I always sang. So those were the kind of two original passions when I was a little kid,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of translated as an adult to me pursuing jazz as a major in college, and then I got a master's in jazz piano, and so the music the music, making music, composing is still a big part of my life. And then the drawing kept kind of spreading out into other avenues. So painting in art school, and film and video, and now making graphic novels for the past 10 or so years, just spending a good chunk of my time drawing and writing, storytelling, making comics.
Yeah, great. And so how do you, or is the idea of being an Asian American artist or telling Asian American stories something that's very prevalent in all of your work, or is it something that you choose based on the project or the story idea that you're coming across?
Yeah, so I think it must have to do with coming from a family that has so many rich stories.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gotten older, and as my parents have retired and had time to just rest and to even tell us these stories, so I'm just learning so much every day about my family, and these are so special. Like, all of these stories are really special to me. And so when I started reading graphic novels as an adult, and falling in love with the medium, I thought, why can't I tell my own story? And it just seemed natural. It seemed like the most comfortable thing to do is to draw from my own experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about a project that you have going on that you're putting together, the Gulf, which is a kind of a multimedia project, which seems to be kind of speaking to a lot of what you were just saying. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, maybe I can share screen
Sure.
for that one. Let me do that one. So the Gulf it's sort of a decades long project now,
Mm-hmm.
where I've been mining my family stories, um, and coming up with stories for this fictional family, fictional characters that are based on my family. And the Gulf stands. Let me explain that. Yeah, the Gulf is a part of an ocean or sea extending into the land, right? So that's where I grew up. I grew up in a small town on the Gulf of Mexico, in Florida, in Southwest Florida. But this is an immigrant story, and this is about growing up as a Vietnamese American. And so it also implies that second meaning of the Gulf, a wide gap and division. So trying to fill that gap by telling these stories, trying to connect the generations in my family,
Mm-hmm.
and to yeah.
Sure. So CityLit, we're mostly talking to writers, people who are only using kind of the written language to express their ideas. So as a multimedia project, I guess, how are you kind of putting it together, or what makes it
Yeah,
multimedia?
right. So it's the Gulf started out actually as an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
You could purchase it on iBooks and read it that way, because there are little bits of animation in it. There's music that I've composed.
Interesting.
And so it was my chance to combine all of the things that I like to do
Mm-hmm.
into a multimedia project, an interactive project, so that it still exists that way. But then I would present the work at like different little festivals and fairs, and people would always ask if there was a print version of it. And so I started making the little booklets, little zines, and that was so much fun that I've kind of like uh, paused the multimedia part, and really just focused on the bookmaking, and that's been really fun. I've done 5 so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to do 10.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so interesting. I feel like a lot of writers, will have like very specific projects where there's an intended, goal or an intended thing that we want to finish up with. But then I think there's always like that one project that's just kind of I call it like the forever project. It's just the thing that you return to. And like you said, you're just mining it.
Yeah.
And it evolves with you based on, what the context of your life and kind of where you are and what's working at the time. So
Totally.
that's kind of really interesting to see. I guess in this process of doing this, have you come across any kind of surprises or any unexpected moments, either in looking into your family history or in trying to put it into a narrative or put it into some kind of like visual form?
Yeah, and it keeps taking different turns, and the plan that I originally had for each chapter keeps changing a little bit. As I was working on this fifth one, that was the time when my dad passed, and so then this chapter really became a tribute to him, and so it shifted, and my dad named me Nguyen, and so it really is about the origins of my name, the meaning of my name, and why it mattered to my father, and it became a nice way to remember him. And so really, I guess the surprise is that that there are still so many stories that I have left to tell, and it keeps getting it keeps growing.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Well, can I ask you then, what does it mean to you to be an Asian American artist, writer, or even just a person in Baltimore?
Yeah.
How do you identify yourself as those things?
Okay, let me turn to this. So, Aditya, you were here for this, right? You were at the vigil.
Yes, yeah. This, for people watching, this was a vigil that was held the week after the shooting in Atlanta that took the lives of, was it 6, I think, Asian American women.
Yeah.
And so that's what the context of this is. But yeah, definitely describe this piece to us.
Yeah. So, you know, I was really numb and just so at a loss for words when I heard about these killings of Asian Americans, and I think a lot of us felt that way. And out of the blue, and with no real time to plan, the Baltimore Asian Resistance and Solidarity, this is a group that I'm a part of, organized a vigil, and you know, it really was so needed, and I didn't realize it until I was there with the rest of my Baltimore AAPI community. But man, we really needed each other in this moment, and it it was just the start of a healing process, right? But it really, I never would have imagined that I felt such a sense of community. And I'd already befriended a lot of Asian Americans, and of course I'm a part of the group, but also a lot of API in Baltimore are creative artists, and I've met them through the years here in Baltimore. But this event was so tragic and awful that we relied on each other and needed each other for this event. So I try to process this stuff through my work. It's just a way for me to deal with it. And so this is a panel that I drew. It'll be a part of my pandemic sketchbook. And this is one of the final moments of the event, where the musician NB asked us to scream, because right before that, she said that she felt like she'd been screaming into the void for the longest time as an Asian American who also is LGBTQ plus. It was such a powerful moment when we all screamed together, and so I tried to capture that in this drawing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of the breath taken away from just kind of remembering that day and kind of seeing it visualized here. And I don't know what more I could say than what you've kind of captured here, and yeah, exactly what kind of UMB said about just screaming and being together in that kind of primal moment, and acknowledging both the hurt, but also the fact that we're still together. And I hope, that I hope that these videos that we're doing will do a little bit of that as well,
Right.
and kind of showcasing some of the talent around town, and maybe bringing other people out of the woodwork, that we don't know of yet. And I hope that your own work continues to do that, whether it's the Gulf or your pandemic sketchbook or whatever else you have coming before you. So yeah, thanks again for your time. This was really great. This is really beautiful.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah, great, wonderful.